Okay, let's get going then, shall we? Thanks for joining me this afternoon. What I thought I'd do with you today... Oh, hi Jill. How are you? What I thought I'd do today is to just create a card and just a little bit of stenciling, just a little bit of fun with the Edgecutz stamp and die set that we've got here. Now, I'm using the Cherry Blossom set, but there are two others. One is a Dahlia, and I can't for the life of me remember what the third one is. But it's possible that you've got those in your stash. They're quite an old set. They've been around for a long time, but they're a really lovely one to go to. Particularly if you like stamping as well. Stamping and just doing something a little bit different. And also what I thought I'd do is use a little bit of vellum on the card today. Now, it's really strange because I saw the video that Lisa put on, I think, was it late last night or possibly first thing this morning, giving a really comprehensive view on how to use vellum and acetate in our cards. So it's just funny that we seem to be on the same wavelength this morning too. So I've got a couple of cards. I just wanted to show you how we use this Edgecutz. Now, they were designed really to create a shaped edge on our die cut. So I just wanted to use it in a slightly different way. And I've actually shaped the matten layers that go on a larger card here. But just to show you a different way to use it on the edge of a card blank, here I've got a small A6 card that I've actually cut away. I've put it in the landscape orientation here, and I've actually used the die to shape the edge or the corner of the card blank, and I've actually backed it with a little bit of vellum. So say it's really strange that sort of me and Lisa are on that same wavelength, but Lisa's video is definitely worth watching. But yeah, so I've got a couple of cards today. This would be the traditional way to use it, on actually die cutting and shaping a card blank, but I wanted to show you that you can actually use the Edgecutz dies to shape your layers for your cards as well, for your matten layers on your larger cards, just to show you a slightly different way. So the dies that come with this set, we get 3 dies. So we get the 2 that actually die cut our image, and then we get this little singular die which die cuts just the cherry blossom flower. So here's our stamp plate. So we have this gorgeous cherry blossom branch, and we have the single flower. So we have the die that cuts out the single flower. Now you can use this on itself and you can create a lovely spray of flowers or a wreath or any sort of decoration with this smaller flower. But what's interesting about this set and all of the other Edgecutz in this particular set collection, but say what is unusual about these sets is that the dies to actually cut out the main image come as 2 parts, and this is what enables us to shape the edge of the card blanks as well as being able to cut out an image. So if I show you on this particular card blank here, I've used the left hand side. Let me just take that away, it's distracting. If I've actually used the left hand part of the die, and you can see that that corresponds to this side of the die, excuse me, and also I'll show you here that this particular die shaped this side of this layer also. Now if I bring the other die in, although I haven't used this side to shape a card blank, I've actually used this side to die cut obviously the other side of the image to create that. Now if you wanted to shift your shaped edge onto the other side, then you would use this card or this die, and you die cut and position this die either on the side of your layer or on the side of your card blank. So if I turn this one over and you wanted to shape this card blank, then you could use this die, this side die as well. So what I'll do today, I'll also show you how you cut out and use the 2 dies to cut out the 1 image as well. So we'll get round to that in a moment. So let's get going and start making the card. Also wanted to do is just show you how to create a little bit of a background with a bit of stenciling and a bit of inking and a little bit of stamping, just to create the background. And what I'll do, I'll just bring that up to the camera now and hold that there, just so as you can see that detail. So behind the die cut words there that I've used, you can actually see that I've used some ink, and I've used some of the art stencils. I've used the text stamp in the background. There is also, you can possibly see just a little bit of green stenciling here. I'll just show you how I build that up as well, just to create a little bit of interest in the background. And you may have the stencils that I use, but it's really one of those sort of techniques you can use whatever you have in your stash, and it's really fun just to have a play and see what you can come up with. The layers here, the mats and layers that I've used here, I've used the nested stitch torn squares. They're both the same size. I've just layered them slightly differently to each other, so it just gives like a shadow effect. The vellum layer here, and also the white border around the outside, which gives it away. The set I've used is the nested stitched bubble squares, as you can see. The vellum obviously comes from the Modern Florals kit. It's a really lovely vellum. You get 6 different colours in there. It's a really lovely set to have. The words are from the Scripted Edge set. Now this is an edger set also, but I've chosen not to use it like that today, and I've just literally used the dies and cut the script from that, so that works just as well. So you aren't restricted to just cutting and shaping the card with those. So that's a really lovely sized font and a really lovely text to use on the front of your cards. Some of the details that I've added in the inked background here are from the clear stamp collection, the texture stamps, the A6. Definitely a go-to of mine. It's one of my favourite sets, or probably if not my favourite stamp set. Okay, now I'm actually working on a larger sized card today. I'll just get my ruler. Right, the card blank I'm working on is basically 8 inches square, so it's a much larger size. The layer from the nested stitched bubbles is the largest size there, so that's just a Lisa Super Smooth cardstock. It would actually be nice to use a textured cardstock as well. So I'll just put that on as we go. Then I have my layer of vellum, which I've cut from the nested stitched bubbles, but I haven't used the bubble die obviously, but we do have the stitched detail there. I won't add that just yet because I'll be using foam pads to add that. And then, as I say, the 2 layers that I have in the centre here are actually die cut from the stitched torn squares. They're both the same size, so if you can see, I actually put them both together, both exactly the same size, and I've already die cut these to shape them using the edge of the cherry blossom. So I've used the left hand die, and I've already die cut those, and I've die cut both layers together. It's really nice to bring these out, so it's just a case of choosing whatever you fancy from these. There's lots of different designs. You've got a bubble wrap one there, which actually might be quite nice to use. I might use that one. The one that I've used in the background here was like this daisy effect. Smaller designs like this are always good to use because that's really lovely to layer. So it's really nice to choose perhaps quite an open design like this, and then choose a smaller one that you can layer on top. And then we can use our our text stamp or our sort of paint splatter stamp to put on top of that again. So if you're wondering on how to layer stencils, that might just be an option. This is another lovely one. This is one of the very original ones, and I remember using this when they first came out. So useful to use in the background. You don't need to use it as complete hearts, you can just use an area of it, and it really is just a case of building pattern. But that's really nice and open, and something like that would sit really nice over the top of that as well. So I'm using just two colours, the Antique Pink and the Garden Sage. I think they go really nicely together. I've used pink in the background here, so I think what I might try and do is I'll go opposite this time round, just show you a different colourway. So I shall use the Garden Sage. Now initially what I want to do is just go really gently. I will put this image onto my cardstock like this eventually, so I just want to create a band of pattern that my sentiment can sit along, just sort of along here. Now if you don't have stencils, or if it's something you're not comfortable doing, it might be worth just finding some design paper just to perhaps go along there as well, which a sentiment can sit on top of. It's all about sort of working with what you have and what you're comfortable using. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit of ink, just blot off the majority of that, because I don't want this to go on too bold. I just want this first layer to be really light, and just really gently just go across the heart, just backwards and forwards in this sort of the general area that I want to have this band of pattern. Now it's all about building the colour, so go really gently to start with. And it may look as if not a huge amount is happening, but honestly it is. And if you can build up this colour slowly, then you've got a lot of control over what you're doing. Now you'll notice that I'm not using the Ultimate for this. It's because I'm not needing to be very precise. I'm holding the cardstock, I'm holding the stencil on top. I can move the stencil away. You can see that I've got the pattern forming where it didn't necessarily look like I was putting down any ink, but it's there. So that is enough for me at this stage. I don't want to overdo that. I think what I will do now, I shall get my stamps, my texture stamps. Now these are perfect because they are very small in size, because you're not actually stamping them to create a focal point. You really are just using them as texture in the background. And what you'll find is when I use these, and I've done this before on many videos that I've used them, I don't actually put them on a stamping block either. I literally, because of the material that they're made of, they've got the natural cling, so you notice that they will actually stick to your fingers. So that is ideal for me. So I just ink them up. I will blot off the majority of that, because I really don't want that to be too bold initially, and I'll just start stamping, and I'll just start building it up, and I'll just get a feel of what that pattern is doing for me. So you can see it really is just, I mean, you may want to go bolder with it or use something slightly different. That's entirely up to you. I think the beauty of this technique is to actually create something that is perfect to your eye. It's got to be pleasing to you, and this is how you'll enjoy crafting like this and want to come back and try even more out. And what you may find, if you're not, I'm using a piece of plastic here, but you can equally use scrap paper or copy paper, and quite often you'll find that everything that you blot off, because you're not thinking about it, it's just an instinct reaction just to take off the ink. You'll find that when you actually look at what's left on the copy paper, you might actually prefer, or not necessarily prefer, but you might actually like what you've got sitting on the side here. So sometimes you can surprise yourself with what you blot off on the side there. So be prepared to have a whole new project happening here that you weren't actually aware of initially. So And that's how actually you build the confidence. That's how I started building the confidence to start stamping like this. Now I've taken the text stamp while I was chatting to you there, and I'm using exactly the same. Yes, it is larger, but I can work with this in exactly the same way. So if you find that your stamps have perhaps lost their stick, you can just give them a quick wash under a warm tap in the kitchen or in the sink. Perhaps a tiny amount of washing up liquid, so tiny amount of soap liquid, and that will just reignite any of the cling that material has. So all I'm doing now, I am blotting off because I don't want that green to be overpowering in bold, and I'm just putting that text stamp just across that border there, and you can see how that is layering up nicely. Now obviously we've used all green here, so just to lift that a little bit, I will add some pink in there. I do want to wait until that's dried. I mean, these inks do dry pretty quick, but obviously we just don't want that to smudge. So I'm just going to blot that off a little bit with just a piece of cardstock there, and just check that there's no ink coming away. So that means that I can put another stencil over the top and it's not going to smudge what I've put there. So I'm going to use this gamer stencil, which can look like little sparkles, little stars, or little discs if you actually look. But and I'm just going to come in with some pink. So I'm using the antique pink. It's not going to be in your face, and it's going to be really subtle. So I'm just going to add little areas here and there. I'm not even going to worry too much about it being uniform. So I just want to break up that green a little bit. So I may not have gone heavy enough. So this is a case again, just building. So just work away, just really slowly, and just enjoy it coming together. And say, put the ink down really slowly, because that gives you the chance just to keep checking and thinking, do I need a little bit more? Do I need to sort of change position? And work with the lighter colours to start with, I always say, because that does give you, makes the process go that little bit slower. So you're not full on bold in with a really bright colour, which then you don't know what to do with. And just by using the two colours that coordinate, again, that gives you that control. It really does. So I'm only just picking out areas. I'm really not too fussed where this is, as long as sort of an even spread across the belt. And if I just take that away there, that is more than enough. I've broken up the green with that pink. Let me just bring that up to the camera. Again, I can't see what's on the screen, but let me just bring that up and just show you there. That's just a really nice background. Now you can create this background on anything. It doesn't need to be a shaped piece of card at all. This could just be a band of design on a small card, something really quick. You put a sentiment over the top and you're good to go. It's just a really nice technique to use, really nice technique to fall back on as well, actually. Now we're going to lay this here. What I will do, the same way as I've done here, I've actually coloured that layer behind just lightly with the pink, just to give that little shadow detail. And I will do this just briefly, just lightly with the green. Now I'm using Garden Sage, and I'm just really lightly just going to colour tint the edge of this cardstock. I really don't want it to be bold, but I just want to take off the whiteness off that edge. Now, if you wanted, obviously, you could use a coloured cardstock for this. I just wanted to keep this all very, very toned and very coordinated. So I was able to do that by using the white card and colouring it and colour tinting it myself with the inks. Now, I'm really loving this Garden Sage. It's the first time I've used this, actually. I've seen Lisa use it. So I was really keen to get this into a project. I think I do like using a green. I say I really must wean myself off using the woodland moss. I think that would definitely be one of the first re-inkers I need to get when they come into stock. Okay, so we have that, And just by having that little bit of green around the outside, it just sets off the stamping and the stenciling that you've created there. As I've done here, I stamp it in black. And instead of actually colouring the flowers, I colour the background. This time I've obviously coloured it in pink, but I've coloured it in blue in the past as well, so it looks like sky. And what it does, it takes away the technical aspect of colouring and shading your flowers, which can be quite daunting. But I think just by leaving the actual stamped image white and colouring the background, I think that's just as effective. So that's a really nice way to do that. I've used alcohol markers to do that, but obviously you can use pencils or watercolour paints as well. But this time round, what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to colour tint the cardstock and stamp directly on top of that. And I just added little hints of colour with Lisa's fine liner pens. Again, really simple, so you really don't need to be phased by colouring an image like this. To start with, I'm going to colour tint this card. Now again, I'm colour tinting the card because I want it all to be coordinating, but there's no reason why you can't stamp onto coloured cardstock. That would work absolutely just as well. You can use an ink that is coordinated with your cardstock that you're stamping onto, or you can use a black ink or Lisa's hybrid black ink, because you can use alcohol markers to colour with that, or watercolour markers. So that's the beauty of using Lisa's black ink. But today I'm just going to colour tint the cardstock. You can see here it's not going to take me too long at all, and I'm using the dusky pink. Here I've used, this was actually eucalyptus leaves, the colour that I've used on this one here. So we want to stamp our image. So take that off the carrier sheet like so. Line it up on the cardstock, and we want to secure that down with our magnets. Okay, so there we are. I've inked my stamp with the antique pink. Now I may need to do this a couple of times, but because I'm using the Ultimate, that is no issue at all. So I'm going to stamp that down. There needs to be done again. So what I'm going to do is move my magnets. And the beauty of using the platform is that we can keep coming in with our stamp to make sure that we get a perfect image all the way through. Now this is going to take a little bit of time because I'm using a much paler colour. So I will need to stamp 3 or 4 times, and you'll find that you'll just need to move the magnets around just a little bit, just so as you can get the areas of the stamp. It could be that you have magnets that are thinner, in which case you'll be able to stamp the impression probably better and quicker first time round. But I think these magnets are a little bit too thick. I just haven't changed them. I've used, the background is coloured with the antique pink, and I've stamped with antique pink, so it's really beautiful and tone on tone. I think that's a really lovely way to stamp an image, using the tone on tone, especially if you're not confident stamping in black or something. It can look quite daunting, so doing it like this, it makes it a lot more delicate. And here as well, I've stamped tone on tone. It's with the eucalyptus leaves, and it's worked out really, really nice. So what I want to do now, obviously, is die cut this. I think, and I find that the easiest way to do this is to do this in 2, because that way I know that the dies won't overlap each other. It means they won't get damaged, and I can get a lot more precise a cut. So it's really no bother die cutting twice. So I've just lined up, matched one of the dies against the stamped image there, so I can die cut this now. It's definitely worth securing it in place with a bit of tape. So I'll take that away. Now it hasn't come out of the cardstock, but don't worry about that, we can sort that out in a second. So we bring in our second die, or the other half. We don't need to worry about matching it up to the end points of what we have just cut. Just match it up to the design. So now we have that die cut, but obviously it's still just caught. I've got a little bit of tape sitting there. There we are, take that away. That is just caught, but only by a very, very small tab. So what you can do, you can either take a little craft knife and just nick that join point, or you can just take a little fine pair of scissors and just snip that away, like so. It's so easy. You don't even really need to think about keeping with the design because it's such a small little nick to make. And that falls away, and you'd never know that that wasn't one die that cut that image out for you. So now we can match this up to sit on top of our layered images like that, and see how all the colours just coordinate beautifully together. Now, just before I do that, I will just start to enhance the image just slightly. Don't have to do this, as I say. I mean, I think it's a beautiful standalone piece in itself, but I've got Lisa's fine liner dies here, fine liner pens here. They come as a set of 12, is it 12? No, 24 even. Wow, lots of colours, so there's bound to be a colour to match. So all you can do is just pick out and just highlight a couple of little areas just to, I think, just add suggestion of where the flowers and branches just start. I think that is all that you need to do, to be honest. So you really don't need to go into huge detail and colour the whole thing. Obviously you can if you want, I'm not saying don't, but I think you can get away with just such a small little amount of colour that just suggests. I think that that works really, really well. So I shall come up with the branch just like so, and just down a little bit. I think that works really nicely. And then just for the centre of the flowers, we have, if you actually look at the image, we do have like little centres of the flowers, and we can just add a little bit of pink detail in there. Just dots. I'm saying I'm not adding blocks of colour, but it just draws your eye to where the centre of the flowers would be. So I think it just gives you that element of detail, and I think that is all that you need. Now, Lisa did have a white pen available as well, and I know Mary Thompson uses it a lot on her design team samples as well. My white pen has run out actually, so I can't use that, but that would equally look really nice on there too. But I think that really does just bring that to life. I don't know what you think. Let me just bring that up to the camera just so as you can see. I think that just adds enough detail to that image without being daunting and having to colour. So now, we can add this to our shaped area of the card. You can use 3D foam if you want to. I'm going to create the dimension by adding 3D foam to the whole layer afterwards, so I don't think we need to have the foam there. And you can see now why I added just that them little patches of pink detail in this area here, because it just highlights the image that we've got there, and it just ties the whole look together. So I'm going to put these layers together now. So I'm just going to create our little just shadow effect like that, and then we can add that onto the vellum layer like so. I've chosen to use the Edgecutz dies, and now I've colour tinted the card again with the pink, with the antique pink, and then die cut those. But just to highlight and just add a little bit more detail to those, I'm going to use one of the larger brushes, come in with the antique pink again, take quite a lot of ink actually. Let me just take the centre out of the A, there we are, and I'm just going to concentrate on the bottom of these words and add just another layer of ink. Now, using the stencil brush means that you can come in quite firmly onto a delicate die cut like this, obviously, because the wording is quite delicate. You wouldn't want to come in with one of these bigger brushes. You would risk sort of buckling the die cut, but coming in with a stencil brush and just adding extra ink to the bottom of the word gives you that ombre effect, which is really lovely. It just gives a nice little subtle detail to that wording. So if I leave that there and bring in the happy, you can see the difference, where we have just a straight colour there all the way through. Then we have the ombre effect on the birthday. So that was just really easy to create. So I shall do the same with the happy, so we are consistent. So just keep a good anchor on the little words here. And so they are quite delicate, but it doesn't mean that you can't work with them. So I'm just going to add the extra ink. There we are. So we've got even on the smallest of dies like that, we have that ombre effect now that can sit onto the front of the card. And also you can see the advantage of just using two colours. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. It makes your colour scheme very simple, and you're not left guessing of what to do. You're not left disappointed that you perhaps chosen the wrong colour. So take the time to choose your colours wisely before you start your project, and then your project will run really smooth and it will turn out exactly the way that you want it to do. So that would be my advice when it comes to choosing colours. And obviously the more that you use Lisa's inks, the more familiar you're going to get with the shades. So eventually you'll just know what shades to reach for. So I was just looking for my tweezers there just to help me place that on the front of the card. Just gently put the happy in place as well. There we are. Right, now to get the benefit of having used vellum in the background, we want to see that the light actually passes through it, and it's, you know, that it's got that sort of translucent effect to it, don't we? So sitting it flat onto a white cardstock, although as pretty as it is, we sort of lose some of that beauty of it being vellum. So I'm just going to raise it up a little bit onto the foam pads. That's a really nice way just to simply stamp and just use some colour tinting techniques onto our textured cardstock and use our Edgecutz dies in a slightly different way as to what we would normally do. So these are completely reverse colours of each other, which makes them look really different, which is I'm really happy about. And then we have a slightly different way of using the Edgecutz and putting the vellum behind as well. So it ties in nicely with the video that Lisa put on for us, which is well worth looking up on YouTube. I shall love you and leave you for this afternoon. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Look forward to seeing you with Lisa tomorrow evening. And thanks so much for joining me. Take care, everyone.